Hello everyone, I'm going to do my best to project my voice today. These allergies are hitting us all, I'm afraid. My goal today is to discuss what you're going to talk to your doctor about, just so you guys kind of have a brief overview of that, because I've done this conversation many, many times. It's confusing for everyone, and I'm going to try to make it as simple as possible. You definitely always want to schedule a single appointment to go over these pieces of paper with your doctor. Do not tack it on at the end of another visit. You do not have time, okay? So if you want your questions answered and you need to make sure your doctors know what you want done in these cases, okay? So why do you need them? And everyone's done a fabulous job today, but why do we need advance directives? How many people here have had a loved one or have been in the hospital in emergency situations and your loved one's incapacitated, can't talk? How many here? Show of hands. Okay. How stressful is that? Right? When we're under stress, we do not make good decisions. It's just part of the package. But if you've had this discussion with your loved ones, if you've had this discussion with a medical power of attorney, it takes a whole load off of everyone's shoulders. Because when everyone is under that type of an emergency, stressful situation, ICU situation, it is difficult, no matter what, even when you have had these conversations. But just have those conversations, have your medical power of attorney understand what you want done in those types of situations, and it just takes a load off of you, it takes a load off of them, okay? I have been in these situations with families. It is tough. I've worked in the hospital many years, I've worked outpatient. No matter what, it is a tough situation. So that's why you want to start out and get some of these advanced directives. So how many people have seen one of these? Right? Good job. You guys are ahead of the game. Okay. This is what we call the MOST form, which does stand for Medical Orders for Scope of Treatment. It has kind of become the latest, newest in the last 15 years, your do not resuscitate form. Now, it has other choices on it, but the most important thing here is for acute situations is this: do you want CPR? Do you not want CPR? I'm just going to tell you right now, we have no idea how you are going to come out of CPR. The most common statement I get when I go through this whole form with my patients is, well, I want CPR if I'll be okay, but I don't want CPR if it means I'm going to be a vegetable. And I'm sorry, I wish I knew how you would go afterwards. We have no idea. There's lots of statistics out there about how many people survive CPR. There's so many factors. The biggest thing is understanding what CPR is. We have YouTube today if you guys would like, I mean, not to be awful, but it might be worth looking up, CPR in action or some sort of video to see what actually happens. It is very much a traumatic event. You do not get out of proper CPR being done by a EMT, nurse, doctor, whoever's around, without usually broken ribs, but definitely bruised. Chest is going to be black and blue. If we put a tube down someone's throat to help them breathe, there's going to be some soreness there. There is trauma with this procedure. It's wonderful we have it. We've saved a lot of lives. We now use the shocking pads, the AEDs that you guys see almost everywhere these days. Those have made things a little bit easier, but there's still going to be chest compressions in most cases if your heart is not beating. Okay? So, we have no idea what's going to happen. So what you need to decide is, do I want that much done to me to save my life, or do I not? Do I want to just go? So That's the big question. This is acute situations. This is not for long term. I've been in the hospital for weeks. This just we need to know what's going on right then and there. And that, so number A is the most important thing to get figured out for yourselves, okay? As we go down here, section B, this is if you have a pulse and or you are breathing. How much do you want done? So again, this can be this is also part of the acute situation. If you are not responding to a family member or who you're with, but you're still breathing and you have a pulse when EMT gets there, then the question is, which of these items do you want done? There's full treatment, there's selective treatment, and there's comfort-focused treatment, okay? So that can include putting in an airway to make it easier for you to breathe. So some of those intubation questions are answered in that second section specifically. It can also include IV antibiotics, IV fluids. Usually, again, this is mostly in the acute situation. So A and B are going to be your acute situation, meaning it just happened. What are we doing in the first day of a situation that happens like this, okay? As we get down farther, C and D start to go into more of the advanced directives, living will type of situation, okay? Which is still a good conversation to have when you're filling out this whole form. And the biggest thing to know on this is you can change items, which is why we have multiple lines on the bottom. So if you decide to change something, you can sign it again and put the date and time when you signed it, okay? But I highly recommend make a full office visit with your doctor to go through this, get all your questions answered, discuss it. They need to make a copy so they can put it on your file. I would recommend to take a copy to the hospital as well. The hospital system and the clinic system, even though they're right next door to each other, those computer systems do not talk yet. Eventually they will. They're trying to, but they don't right now. So if it's 9 o'clock on a Friday night, it's very difficult to get into the clinic system from the hospital. They're supposed to have sign-ons and everything. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. So just know that it's better if you just hand carry this, ask them specifically at the hospital registration desk to get this into your chart, okay? It just makes it easier for the ER if you show up in an ambulance, and then that way it's already in the chart, okay? So that is the beautiful green form. How many have seen this one? You guys all got a copy of this one. Okay. This little booklet is so nice. It's Colorado Hospital Association. If you type in Colorado Advance Directives, you're going to get a lot of forms that are very similar. But this little booklet is the best thing because it has everything you guys want to look at in here. Okay? So at the back of these, and it has a bunch of questions you may have. Yeah, it's a green and blue. You can't miss it. It's always this color. It's a navy blue with the bright neon green. The back of this booklet has, this is a CPR directive, which how many people signed like the multi-copy paper that you could rip off, years ago? Those have kind of faded out. I haven't seen too many copies of that lately. This is the same thing, where you sign your do not resuscitate order. Okay, so that folds out there. The next page, this is now the advanced directive stuff. So this next fold out is the advanced directives on what you want done in a case where you become in a vegetative state or develop a terminal illness where you're not able to express your wants. So this goes with your medical power of attorney as well. Okay, these are your desires, your wishes, your wants. There's other names for it too. There's 5 wishes, which I noticed there was some handouts over there. I created a handout that's at the back table with a bunch of other website resources. You guys can look up all this information on there too. But that's why I love this booklet, because it's all right here. This is going to go through your IV nutrition and IV fluids. And the question there is, do you want your life prolonged for, oh good, we have some more. Do you want your life prolonged by artificial nutrition and artificial fluids? Now, if it's a comfort issue, you know, getting dehydrated, sometimes IV fluids, and we're in the hospice realm in this building too, sometimes IV fluids can be a comfort measure, okay? Not very often, but sometimes they are. So this is more about, are we prolonging your life by giving you IV nutrition or IV fluids, okay? And what you want there. This goes through specifically if this is a persistent vegetative state. So you've been in the hospital for weeks now, okay? Say you developed a pneumonia, you have some other medical conditions, you've been in the hospital for a while, and for whatever reason, you're just not coming out of it. And you're still in a coma, and you're still intubated, and things are not going well. These are your wishes written down so that your medical power of attorney or family members, which again I'll get into that a little bit in a second, know what you want, okay? Again, it is good, and you could probably combine this into one visit. It is good to sit down and go through your wishes with your doctor. I would recommend getting this book first, read through it, and fill it out. And if you have questions, write them down for your doctor. But fill this information out so you can go through with your doctor and tell them what you want and what you've decided so that they're aware. And again, have it put on your chart and take a copy to the hospital. Okay? Yes?
Would you not recommend that as you go for that doctor's appointment that you take a trusted loved one with you to listen in on that conversation in case maybe you're a little elderly, maybe a little forgetful, comprehension might not be what it once was?
Right. So it's up to you. Ideally, what you would want to do with this information once you've filled it out for yourself is have that conversation with your loved one, spouse, offspring, or your medical power of attorney. Have that conversation with them so they know what your wishes are. You can take them with you to the doctor's appointment too, so that they can hear it again. But I would not recommend that being the only time you ever talk to them about it. And that gets hard. These are hard conversations to have, and I don't deny that. But you definitely want to make sure the people that would be called upon if you have an accident or you're in this medical condition, they know what you want. So that may require multiple conversations around this very difficult subject, okay? Because what happens is that's a very good question. If you've only had the conversation with your doctor, and we have it on file, but you have a offspring flies in because something happened, and you have not had that conversation with them, they're going to be fighting with the doctor the whole time that, well, we want to do everything possible, prolong, this person's life. We don't want her to die. And it's a constant battle. So, lastly in this book, and, sorry, go ahead, question?
So if we have these documents completed and the ones that need to be notarized or whatever, take care of all that, then we don't necessarily have to have an attorney draft other documents, is that correct?
Yes. And in Colorado, in Colorado, and this booklet says that, you don't have to have a notary, and you don't have to have full-blown witnesses. So I've had plenty of patients just bring me this, and in Colorado it is legal. However, how close are we to 3 other states? How many of us have family members in other states, right? So to be on the safe side, it is better, and that's what I was asking Keenen about before he left. It is better to go ahead and have it fully witnessed and notarized so that it will hold water in other states. Because a lot of times we will get moved to a different state where our kids are or family members, when we get incapacitated, sometimes that happens. So in order for this to be honored fully outside of Colorado, you do want to go ahead and get it notarized and have your witnesses. Okay? Yeah, that's why I asked him, because I'm like, okay, I want to make sure this is still accurate, because it says 2011, but all the websites I was looking up last night that are more up to date say the same thing still. Colorado does not require the notarization. Okay? The last paper in here is the medical power of attorney form. So you can also fill that out. That's why, again, I love this booklet. It has everything you need. Filling out that medical power of attorney. It asks you to designate one, and then it asks you to name two more if you want to. So that's, you want to talk to people before you designate them as medical power of attorney. You don't want them to find out, if something happens to you, they don't want to get a phone call. Again, why you want to have these conversations when you've picked your medical power of attorney, make sure they know, and have this conversation with them. And again, if you have this already filled out, that'll make the conversation a little bit easier, because you can discuss what you want done if something happens to you. But yeah, make sure you let them know before you pick them. Yes?
You said maybe list 2 or 3 people, medical power of attorney?
Alternates. So the way this one reads is you pick your primary medical power of attorney, and then if the first person is not available, you've named 2 alternates. So it does not mean that all 3 technically are, it just means, okay, if we can't get a hold of your first one, who would be your next alternate? So you could just name one, or you could name a second. So yeah, they're labeled as alternates. It does not mean they supersede the first one. Yes?
You said there needs to be a copy of this on file in the hospital, correct? If we go into the hospital, get transferred to Durango or Grand Junction, or where does it go with that?
Hopefully. Yeah, where we're at and our location, because we could end up at either place, it might not be a bad idea to drop a copy off at Mercy too. I'm not going to tell you go and do Farmington as well, though sometimes we get flown down there. And hopefully stuff goes with you, preferably. The DNR form for sure, that is usually the most important thing. That is usually part of every chart. It used to be labeled on all of our, the plastic charts that we used to have everything on. It was one of the first things on the front. Yeah.
If EMS shows up wherever and it's on the refrigerator or you have it somewhere, will they put it with you?
Usually they try to grab it. I can't promise it always happens, but usually they try to grab it, which is why they request, if you don't want the beautiful green thing on your refrigerator, that's why they recommend putting it on the refrigerator, because it's bright green, it's easy to see. It also talks about you could, make an envelope that says DNR form. If you want to buy a bracelet, you can buy that. I know a few patients who've had it tattooed on themselves. So, so you don't lose that. But, yeah, ideally, that's why this form goes where they can grab it and take it with them, as well as so they can see it when they enter the home.
They look for it before they do CPR?
They try, yes. They're supposed to. I believe they do. That's the whole idea behind it, is that they are looking for that. Or asking the family member where is,
Since I have doctors at Mercy as well as Southwest, I should give them all copies.
Yeah. Yeah, if you have specialists over in Durango, it doesn't hurt to take a copy with you and give it to them too. Because then that way, wherever you're at, because they're going to be calling, depending on what the condition is, they may be calling different specialists as well, and then that way they have a copy too.
Yeah.
Yes?
I may have missed it, but I haven't heard anybody talk about adding to that list your current medications.
That's a good idea too. Yes, that would probably.
They ask for it all the time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is a good idea. It would be a good place to attach it so that EMS has a copy of it as you're getting wheeled out.
And as they change, you change that copy.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, and ideally, not every doctor's office has this, but I know I print out a handout that goes with the patient, so sometimes it'll show the updated meds for that day, which can help you to update your list at home too. So that's another way to do it. Yes?
Southwest used to give these out when you go in to register.
Yeah, the little plastic things.
And I'm the nurse for the Ute tribe, and I made sure every one of my patients
Had one. They used to be green.
filled out their list. But you can get little medication cards that you can fill out your meds, and then I carry it with me with my COVID shot record.
Yeah, and some people will take the medical list and laminate it, or yeah, so that is a good idea to have a med list there. And med allergies, you'd probably want to put the med allergies on there too. Yes.
I was going to suggest that in addition to the very good idea of the prescription drugs that you're on, any known conditions that you have, such as osteoporosis, or other long-term, you learn to live with it. It's not going to be terminal, but it might affect medical choices if you're not conscious when you come to that point. And also, Tom was not only under Medicare, but he was also under limited VA care.
Mm-hmm.
And VA knew certain things about his health that Medicare didn't cover or wasn't aware of. So being able to cover both of those bases might be important as well.
Right. Which is why I always requested records from, as much as they didn't like to give them, records from VA as well to have inpatient charts. Because even if I'm not taking care of all of the medical conditions that the VA is, I still need to know what those meds are. Same thing if somebody is getting care at Access for mental health conditions, I need to know what those drugs are, regardless of them wanting to tell me what they are. I still need to know what those drugs are because I need to know for ordering for regular medical conditions what those interactions are. So, yes, I always encourage everyone to make sure everybody's talking to each other or getting copies at least. Or if you don't think that's happening, take a copy of your last note with you to your other doctor. Have that communication. Because as much as we'd like to think that all the offices communicate, they don't. Sorry. Colorado was supposed to get this whole big communication thing where all of the notes flowed. Yeah, I still haven't seen that happen yet. So that is a good idea to get a good handle on where your records are at. Make sure your med list is up to date so that everybody knows what that is. Your medical allergies, I would say our medication allergies would be even more important because, when we're thinking in an acute situation, we don't always have access to those. So, yes, medication allergies in your med list would probably be the primary thing. Hopefully, once you get to the hospital, there's some information on the more longer medical problems. So, any other questions? Yes? No.
It's like that young man that was on a motorcycle or during a car accident. You have that all set up and ready. Then, as younger people. So if you know anybody that lives a dangerous life.
Well, and I would also say, too, the harder discussion as well is we have just an enlarging number of autistic adults now who are in long-term care situations, and these are conversations the parents and guardians have to have for those people too. So we don't always think about a 26-year-old who's autistic needing something like this, but something happens, or if the parents have now passed and there's a guardian, that's another information list that needs to be checked off. And that is increasing, unfortunately. So it's always a good discussion to have with everyone. Make sure I got all. But again, schedule a full appointment just for this. You don't want to just rush through this at the end of your office visit, okay? You want a full appointment so you can ask your questions, so your doctor knows what your wishes are, so you have it down on writing and a copy in your chart, and make sure you talk to your medical power of attorney. I think I got, oh, and then again, just remember, most of this, even though there is a DNR in here too, most of this is more long-term care. If you're in a chronic state, if you're in an ICU for weeks on end, or you're, this is longer term with the living will and the advance directives. This is short term. This is acute. This is when they walk in the door at your house. Okay? Yes?
Could you speak a little bit more about the 5 wishes form in comparison to these?
I cannot, and that's why there's some handouts over there that are a lot more specific, and the website is on the list of resources I gave you too, because these are the ones that I have used most readily with my patient panels. And they've been in every clinic in this area too, so, yeah.
And those forms have to be notarized, correct?
No,
No, they don't have to be.
not in Colorado.
Okay, not in Colorado.
If you want it to carry weight any other state, you should, but not in Colorado. They don't have to be. Okay. Thank you, everyone.